What if I told you the distance you're feeling right now isn't rejection, it's restraint? What if the silence, the delayed replies, the subtle pullback isn't because she's losing interest, but because she's terrified of how much she's starting to feel? Before we go deeper, take 1 second, subscribe to the channel and like this video, because what you're about to hear might change how you see her forever. You've been watching her, trying to decode her. One day she's warm, engaged, almost magnetic, and the next she's distant, guarded, like a completely different person. And your mind does what every man's mind does. It assumes the worst. She's not interested. She's playing games. She found someone better. But here's the uncomfortable truth most men never learn. Attraction doesn't always look like pursuit. Sometimes it looks like retreat. Because when a woman starts feeling something real, something she didn't plan, something she can't control, it doesn't always excite her. Sometimes it scares her. Not because of you, but because of what you represent. You represent uncertainty. You represent emotional risk. You represent the possibility of losing control over her own heart. And if she's been hurt before, if she's built walls she swore she'd never let down again, your presence doesn't just attract her. It threatens her emotional safety. So what does she do? She pulls back. Not to push you away, but to protect herself from falling too fast, too deep, too soon. And this is where most men fail. They see her hesitation, and they chase harder. They text more, they demand clarity, they try to fix the distance. But in doing that, they unknowingly confirm her fear, that emotions with you come with pressure, expectation, and loss of control. So she withdraws even more. You see avoidance. But what's really happening is internal conflict. A quiet battle between desire and defense. She wants to move closer, but something inside her is pulling the brakes. And unless you understand this dynamic, you'll misread her completely. And lose her, not because she didn't feel enough, but because she felt too much and didn't feel safe handling it. You start noticing the pattern, don't you? It's subtle at first. She opens up one night, laughing, sharing stories, letting you see pieces of her that most people never get access to. There's warmth in her voice, a softness in her energy, something real. And just when you begin to feel like you're finally getting closer, she disappears a little. Not completely, just enough to make you question everything. Her replies get shorter, the enthusiasm fades. The emotional depth she showed you suddenly gets replaced with surface-level conversations. And it confuses you, because nothing went wrong. That's the part that messes with your head. But what you're witnessing isn't inconsistency for no reason. It's emotional recoil. When a woman starts to feel exposed, when she realizes she's said too much, felt too much, revealed too much too soon, something inside her pulls her back to safety. It's almost instinctive. Because opening up means vulnerability, and vulnerability means risk. So she creates distance, not because she regrets you, but because she's trying to regain control of herself. And here's where you need to pay attention. If she truly wasn't interested, she wouldn't come back at all. But she does. She reappears with a casual message, a small check-in, maybe even a joke as if nothing happened. And it feels confusing, almost frustrating, like she's resetting the connection. But she's not resetting it. She's regulating it. She's trying to keep the connection at a level where she feels safe without letting it go completely. Because deep down, she doesn't want to lose you. She just doesn't know how to handle what she's starting to feel. And this is the difference between a woman who is playing games and a woman who is protecting her heart. One disappears without care. The other creates space but never fully lets go. You'll notice it in the way she still pays attention to you, the way she remembers small details, the way she responds when you pull back slightly, almost like she's checking if you're still there. That's not indifference. That's quiet attachment mixed with fear. And if you misinterpret that fear as rejection, you'll respond with pressure, neediness, or frustration. And that is exactly what pushes her further away. Because now it's no longer just her feelings she's afraid of. It's yours too. Now here's the part most men completely overlook, and it costs them everything. When she's scared of catching feelings, she starts testing distance, not you. She's not sitting there planning mind games or trying to confuse you. What she's really doing is observing how you react when things don't go perfectly. When she pulls back slightly, when she takes longer to reply, when she doesn't give you the same energy she gave before. She's watching, not to manipulate you, but to understand you. Because in her mind, this is the moment where your true nature reveals itself. Do you stay grounded, or do you become anxious? Do you respect her space, or do you try to force closeness? Do you remain emotionally steady, or do you spiral into overthinking, double texting, and subtle pressure? And here's the truth that might sting a little. Your reaction in these moments matters more than anything you say when things are going well. Because when everything feels easy, anyone can seem confident, calm, and attractive. But when there's uncertainty, when she pulls back, that's where emotional strength is either revealed or exposed as fragile. And for a woman who is already afraid of losing control of her emotions, a man who also feels out of control doesn't feel safe. So she leans back even further, not because she wants distance from you, but because she needs distance from the emotional chaos. But when you do something different, something rare, when you don't chase, when you don't panic, when you allow space without making it heavy, without turning it into a problem, something shifts inside her. Because now, instead of feeling like she's about to get pulled into something overwhelming, she feels like she's stepping into something stable. And stability is what slowly dissolves fear. She begins to relax. She starts leaning in again, naturally, without pressure. Not because you forced it, but because you didn't. And that's the paradox most men never understand. The more you try to secure her when she's uncertain, the more uncertain she becomes. But the moment you show her, through your actions, not your words, that your emotional state doesn't depend on her every move, she starts to feel safe enough to explore her feelings, instead of running from them. Because now, it's no longer intense, it's steady. And steady is what she can finally trust. Let me take you a layer deeper, because this is where her internal conflict becomes even more intense. A woman who is catching feelings doesn't just think about how she feels in the moment, she starts projecting forward. She begins asking herself questions she may never say out loud. Is this going to hurt me later? Am I getting attached too quickly? Do I trust him enough? Will I lose myself if I go deeper? And those questions don't come from you. They come from her past, her previous experiences, her emotional scars, the times she opened up and didn't feel safe, the moments where vulnerability led to disappointment. All of that gets stored in her subconscious, and it activates the moment something starts to feel real again. So even if she enjoys talking to you, even if she looks forward to your messages, even if she feels a genuine connection, a part of her is still scanning for risk. And when that internal alarm gets triggered, she creates space. Not because she doesn't want you, but because she's trying to make sure she won't regret letting you in. This is why her behavior can feel contradictory. She reaches out, then pulls back. She engages, then withdraws. She warms up, then cools down. To the untrained eye, it looks like inconsistency, but psychologically, it's self-protection in motion. Now here's something critical you need to understand. If you become reactive to her fluctuations, you unintentionally reinforce her fear that emotional involvement leads to instability. But if you remain consistent, calm, grounded, and unaffected by her temporary distance, you begin to rewrite that internal narrative. She starts to experience something new, a connection where she doesn't feel pressured to rush her emotions, a connection where her fear doesn't escalate because the other person isn't escalating either. And slowly, her guard begins to lower. Not all at once, not dramatically, but in small moments, longer conversations, more openness, more initiation from her side, because now she's no longer protecting herself from you. She's beginning to trust how she feels around you. And that's the shift most men never recognize. They think attraction is about intensity, but for a woman who's afraid of her own feelings, safety will always matter more than intensity. At this stage, something interesting starts to happen, something most men completely misread. Her behavior may look like it's going backwards, but in reality, she's trying to find balance. Because feeling strongly doesn't automatically mean she's ready to surrender to those feelings. So she tests equilibrium. She might reduce the frequency of communication, not to disconnect, but to see if the connection still holds without constant stimulation. She might step away briefly to observe whether you chase, whether you panic, whether you become unsettled by her absence. And what she's really measuring isn't your availability, it's your emotional independence. Can you remain centered when she's not actively engaging? Can you maintain your composure without external reassurance? Can you continue your life, your purpose, your direction, without making her the focal point of your emotional state? Because from her perspective, a man who is anchored in himself is far less threatening than a man who revolves around her reactions. Why? Because if she allows herself to fall for someone, she needs to know that the emotional foundation is stable on both sides. If you become unstable when she pulls back, it signals dependency. And dependency to her translates into pressure. Pressure creates fear. Fear leads to more withdrawal. But if you demonstrate consistency, not through words but through your behavior, something very different happens. She begins to associate you with calmness instead of intensity, with security instead of unpredictability, with emotional space instead of emotional demand. And in that environment, her natural curiosity grows again. She starts to miss the connection, not because you're chasing her, but because the connection itself feels good, unforced, and safe to return to. This is when she re-engages more naturally, not out of obligation, not out of confusion, but out of genuine internal pull. Because now, her feelings are no longer competing with fear, they're being experienced without pressure, and in that state, she doesn't have to protect herself as aggressively. She can lean in, at her own pace. And that pace is where real connection begins to form. So where does this leave you? It leaves you in a position of awareness, one that most men never reach. Because once you understand that her distance can sometimes be a sign of internal conflict rather than disinterest, your entire approach changes. You stop reacting emotionally to every fluctuation. You stop interpreting every delay as rejection. You stop trying to control the pace of something that is, by nature, unfolding internally within her. Instead, you begin to operate from a grounded state. You give space without disappearing. You stay consistent without overextending. You show interest without pressure. And most importantly, you remain aligned with your own life, your goals, your routines, your identity, without making her the center of your emotional world. Because the truth is, attraction is not built through pursuit alone. It's built through the experience she has around you. If being around you feels calm, stable, and non-pressuring, she associates you with emotional safety. If interacting with you feels unpredictable, intense, or demanding, she associates you with emotional risk. And when a woman starts associating you with safety, her natural defenses begin to soften. Not because she's being convinced, but because she's no longer protecting herself from you. And when that happens, her behavior shifts in a way that feels almost effortless. She communicates more openly, she engages more consistently, she initiates without hesitation. Not because you chased harder, but because you created an environment where she didn't feel the need to run. So if you've been seeing distance, silence, or inconsistency, don't rush to conclusions. Pay attention to patterns instead of moments. Look at how she returns, not just how she pulls away. Because sometimes, what looks like avoidance on the surface is actually someone standing at the edge of their own feelings, trying to decide whether it's safe to fall. And your role is not to push them over that edge, it's to be the kind of presence that makes standing there feel safe enough, for them to step forward on their own.